You know how long I waited for games where we have pictures on the wall that are actually high quality? I think it's the first game. Damn. Current exhibitions: The Afterlife in Art and Archaeology, Egyptology and Archaeology Wing, Animalia and Man, Anthropology and Natural Science Wing, upcoming exhibitions: Mesopotamian pottery, ancient traps and weapons, and biblical myths. Huh?
Gotta be so fake.
Marshall College Grand 1937 dance, a buy ticket now. Music by Willie Scott. Alright, spectators 25 cents, dancing 35 cents, refreshments. Marshall Exchange Group yearly meeting, open to all. Debate club. Campus Clarion. Theatre group. Huh? Faculty card, Marshall College, Bedford, Connecticut. Identification card, Dr. Henry Jones Jr., Professor of Archaeology, Woolley Hall. Well, that's us. I'm going to assume that the number has some significance. 020253. Faculty orientation map of the Marshall College campus. First floor, Egyptology, Archaeology, yes. We are at the reception. Professor Jones Keeler Komarov Bedinai. Second floor, Archaeology 2A, History 2A, Faculty Lounge, Student Lounge. Is this accurate? Does this university? I mean, I'm going to assume this university exists. Just curious if the grounds plan's accurate to 1937. That would be cool. Illustration and print produced by the Marshall College Student and Faculty Orientation Program. Okay, this is terrible. Why would you place the map on J? Map is M for map. Why would... I hate it. No, we're placing the journal on M for map. M. Yes. M. What the heck? We can actually read it. Oh my goodness, you know, normally in a game, you can never read it. Not possible. Damn. Qing Dynasty, 1046 to 223 BC, Cranes and Serpent. Extraordinary sculpture was probably a drum stand for supporting a suspended drum in ritual ceremonies. Damn, we can actually read this. Thailand. Hello there. China. 13th to 12th century. Fangjia wine vessel. Jia became prevalent during the Shang and early Western Zhou dynasties. Wow, whoa! We can actually read. You know, normally in games you can never read this. There's always gibberish, but this game is actually, my goodness. I never want to play a game with less textures again. Oh my goodness, this is glorious. And the reflection, of course, kind of supreme. I mean, now we have like 60 FPS, which is totally fine. Yeah, the reflection, it's, oh my goodness. Oh, Mammutus primigensius radius. Alright. I would like a mammoth. I would like that. Imagine every big museum in the world would have this detailed, well, a crafted world to experience the museum. This would be glorious, extraordinary, wonderful. Such value for humanity, for everyone to be able to experience the grandeur of all the history of our species. This would be tremendous. Imagine this with 20, 30, 40, 50 museums. I would love it. What is that, by the way? Aphrodite of Milos, plaster cast, of course. You know, some people hate British museums, but I kind of would like to remind I'm not British, by the way. I'm not British. I would like to remind people that what happens when nobody cares for the objects, like in the Middle East, where religious fanatics usually destroy all historical artifacts and statues and everything, really, or it gets obliterated in wars. And it's lost at that point, because some nations just can't really be trusted with not constantly destroying themselves. So I'm not sure if the idea of valuable historical artifacts being safe is a bad one, because there are a lot of places where historical artifacts are not safe. Or, for example, there is an example. Germany had some African artifacts, statues, somewhat like, and they gave it back to the African nation it belonged to after some back and forth. And then journalists found out that they never found their way to the public. They instantly got grabbed in Africa by a rich family, and it's now in their private possession, and that knowledge, that cultural heritage, those artifacts are now lost. Because those corrupt politicians gave it to elites, and they hoard it now in some vault that nobody knows. Yeah. That's also why the European community has kind of put a stop to all the giving away the good artifacts, because some nations are just not interested in preserving artifacts and making it available to the public. Assyria. 9th century BC, before Christ. 3,000 years ago. Saluting protective spirit, masterfully executed with incised details and exaggerated musculature, this giant, fierce protective spirit raises his right hand in a ritual salute. His left hand grabs a branch bearing rosettes, perhaps a stylized date palm. Stylized date palm? Huh? That's just, yeah, a sack of whatever. Everything else is conjecture. Across the center of the relief are inscribed lines of Akkadian uniform recounting military victories, conquests, plundered loot, and the reconstruction of the city. Those look like wings. Why does this guy have wings? Alright. Not bad. Isn't that, like, interesting? These are obviously feathers. This kind of looks like an angelic being with wings. Why is that of no significance? Why is there nothing noted here? Exaggerated musculature, size details. Exaggerated? You call that exaggerated musculature? Okay, interesting. We had another text here. Christianity, power and judgment. Within Christian societies, faith is often tied with the concept of justice. Sinners go to hell, while those who repent may spend eternity in heaven. Thus, God is positioned as an all-knowing and all-powerful judge, or more simply a father. Early Christian sculpture provides insight into how fear of judgment and power inspired traditions of reverence, of monks and priests, echoing the quiet loyalty of the apostles, of Mary, the dutiful mother, or even of early Christian sects now viewed as heretical, who saw the unlimited power of God as something that could be inherited and exploited by men. Frankfurt. You know, it's not a coincidence that France, French, Franks, Frankfurt. I mean, French are basically Romanized Germans, but don't tell that to the French, but it's kind of true. And oddly enough, the English are kind of Germanized Latins? Can we say that? No, we can't say that. No. Anyway, what do we have here? I can't read that. Go down, please. Thank you. Frankfurt. Herbarium. This work is a critical analysis of the work entitled The Materia Medica on medicinal products, describing several hundred species of medical plants, medicinal, written by Pendanios Dioscorides, a Greek physician who lived in the 1st and 2nd centuries. The work of Dioscorides was appreciated and extremely popular in the 16th century. I love this. South Tyrol hard snuff box. A what? 18th century fish-shaped besamine box. Aha. What do we have here? Decorated leather belt. 17th century. Horn. Poland. Oh my goodness, please don't make me pronounce. I'm sorry, Polish people. I'm going to try to pronounce. I'm going to butcher it. Savnica. This is probably terrible. If you know how to pronounce this, please tell me. Gathering bone. The gathering hunting horn was used to call residents before a public reading and municipal announcements in Chatwina. And according to the local tradition, it was... You know, Polish is a bit like French. You have a lot of letters that have no meaning. They just exist to create a big word. But if you pronounce it like half of them are of no consequence. I know this is an exaggeration. Of course, there are some use to it. There is one piece of information that you might find interesting. Back in the olden days in France, when the first people began to write newspapers, it might be interesting for you to know that the people who wrote the stories in the newspapers were paid according to the length of their texts. So there are some who argue that maybe there was some interest to lengthen the words so you could get more money with less words. Anyway, it's just a story. Lviv, Ukraine, Naut, Cattle Whip. Uplands. What? Ukraine? Oh, I thought according to Russia, Ukraine doesn't exist. Ooh, it doesn't exist, yeah. Ukraine is a beautiful country with beautiful people, and it's an old country. And I do hope that the Ukrainians will finally get their freedom from the yoke of evil Russia. Alright, what else do we have here? There's a little pottery. I'm not interested in pottery. We already saw that one. There are more bones. Ooh, that's a big one. Mammatus primigenia. Okay, that's the ulna. It's just they're different. You know, upper and lower. Fibula, femur, yes. You know, if you need to get that replaced these days, it's possible. Radius, another ulna, yes. Okay, so I think... Oh, no, we're not done. Never mind me. What else do we have? England. Megalodon teeth. Whoa! You know, a megalodon was a primordial mega shark. A big one. One of the finest predators, maybe, that the world had ever seen. Very big. Basically whale-sized. Just a shark. A big one. And that's one teeth. And sharks have many teeth. So that's kind of scary. And interestingly enough, there was a discussion a couple of years ago where biologists said that theoretically we do not know what kind of aquatic species is truly extinct, because it is possible that some have survived in the deep reaches of the ocean, which is basically unexplored. Or maybe they have adapted. Maybe they found ways to survive. No one knows, so maybe one day a big one will rise up and have a little bit of a bite. Anyway, Lynx rufus, Canada. You know, I heard a couple of days ago that apparently Trump said something along the lines of, if you don't want a trade war, you can also become our 50-something state? Is it 52nd, 53rd? How many US states are there? 51 US states number. How many US states are there? Well, it's just 50. So, yes. Consider 50 states and the District of Columbia. Yes. So, could become the 51st Canada. The Canadians are not amused by that, but it's a classic Trump move. Just, yeah. It's a classic Trump move. Interestingly enough, especially with the conflict of Ukraine, for world peace, I'm not even sure if it's terrible if Trump reigns supreme in terms of the presidency, because he is sometimes an illogical man, which means it's hard to predict what he's going to do, because sometimes he's very emotional, unpredictable, and dictators like Putin want predictability. They want to know what's happening when they're stepping out of line. And with Trump, you never know. If Trump wants a nuclear war, it's just a nice tea, dinner, you don't know. And maybe that's good, because maybe the dictators of our planet will think twice before doing anything dumb, because they have no idea how that angry man in the White House is going to react. And it sounds maddening, it is in a way, but it's also kind of logical that when they don't know what's going to happen, they might be a little bit more apprehensive in terms of doing dumb shit. So maybe a madman is what we need. It's a perverted logic, but it kind of holds true, considering that Trump was one of the only presidents that first didn't start a new war. That was the first for a president in a long time, a US president. And secondly, the dictators of our world, they kind of behaved when he was president, because they were like, oh my goodness, what is that guy? Yeah, let's wait for him to disappear before we do any dumb shit. And then he went away, and then the Merkel went away, the German Chancellor, and then hell broke loose, because the two big world leaders kind of not there anymore. Yeah. Anyway. Fossils from the other side of apocalypse. Fossils are a record of the disasters and extinctions that our planet has suffered since its earliest days. Ice ages, floods, and volcanic eruptions have all been responsible for calamities that, at the time, must have seemed like the end of the world. The most well-known extinction was the one that killed the dinosaurs, yet science has yet to come to a consensus on its cause. Many have been suggested: an overabundance of cannibalism, a volcanic eruption, or perhaps the dinosaurs simply grew too big to survive. It is up to our next generation of academics to find the answer to conundrums such as these. You know, these days, the dying off of big species is kind of interesting, especially if you look at Africa, because it's one of the few places where the big animals are still around, at least some of them, but only plant eaters, so giraffes and elephants and rhinoceros. Lions are not particularly big, so the biggest meat eaters, they evolved into something smaller because there wasn't enough food. A plant eater can eat all day. I mean, an elephant basically eats all day. Interestingly enough, an elephant is extremely important for any region, really, where he naturally lives, because when an elephant digests, he doesn't digest a lot. So a lot of the goodies that he takes up, like seeds, for example, of plants, he shits out, and they're fully functional still. So effectively, elephants with their barely digested shit are fertilizing regions, entire regions. Because they're walking a lot and eating the entire day, they're fertilizing a lot. So an elephant is actually quite beneficial for the ecosystem where they live, because they don't digest a lot, because they eat a lot, but their body can't really handle all that. Anyway, enough elephant shit talk. China, divergence and commonalities. In the West, culture was cultivated from predominantly Christian or otherwise Abrahamic values. In the East, however, other religious practices shaped how society and people developed. Until the fall of the last Chinese dynasty 20 years ago, the country held faith in many unique religions, including Confucianism, Taoism, and a myriad of local superstitions. It is actually a very interesting topic with a religion, because nowadays, of course, in China, people are not very religious. It's more about atheism, but that has a historical reason. Let's read this, and then we're talking about it. Yet even in the most distant of lands, there are threads of myth showing commonality with our own beliefs. From the great flood of the Gunyu to the dialectic creation stories of yin-yang, much can be learned from the differences and similarities between the Christian world and beyond. So, China. Interesting topic. I'm not sure if you probably heard about Taiwan existing and China kind of having a problem with that, and it's quite simple actually. So, China wasn't always a communistic, socialistic something. Instead, they once had an emperor. Then also they kind of had ruling people that weren't called emperor. Anyway, and then the communists came, and some Chinese were like, that's a very good idea. And they were like, the ruling people we don't like, fuck off. And then there was a lot of death and destruction, as was in Russia and a lot of other communist countries. And the original government, the ruling power, they fled to an island in front of China, which they later called Taiwan. So that's the original government of China. And then we had the communist rebels, you know, the new ones, the communist new era. And that's the current ruling party of China with President Xi Jinping and all the other people. So they are basically the new generation of the communist rebels who took power in China. And that's also why China is afraid of Taiwan, because Taiwan technically has a very good claim of ruling China, because those people were the original government. Those people were the powerful people. And they were just pushed away by the communists. And the communists are still like, oh my goodness, we can't have that. They are forced to be reckoned with because they have a historical claim on what we have. And that's why they're afraid. That's why a mighty nation like China is terrified of the idea of a strong independent Taiwan. Because of the historical significance of them once having been founded by the original government of China, which then kind of evolved into something else. And nowadays, it's actually an interesting topic what Taiwan actually is, what they believe to be, and a lot of Taiwanese do not represent themselves with China. So they are an own people in a way. A bit like Austria kind of became independent from Germany, or like Luxembourg or Belgium, small nations kind of grew independent from bigger nations, and a little bit like that, Taiwan has kind of made its own identity and kind of moved on, but China didn't. China is still terrified of Taiwan because of that. Yeah, interesting. So, even the most distant lands, threads of myth showing commonality, yes. Learn from the differences, similarities between the Christian world and beyond. It's actually interesting if you travel to Asia. There are some regions of Asia where people just, because of their faith, where every person has an individual balance, and you can't disturb that balance. They're very nice. You know, in Christian countries, you can be a murderer, and 1 minute before your death, you're on a deathbed, you're saying, "Oh, a priest! I must confess me burdens." Boom, problem solved. That's Christian belief. You can be the nastiest, most evil person imaginable if you 1 minute before death get absolved by a priest. At least from a religious perspective, you're fine. Which is kind of hilarious in a bad way. In Asia, it's not like that. In a lot of countries in Asia, people are well behaved at all times because they don't have this cheat card. You know, in Christian countries, there's this cheat card to call, "Oh, me, be absolved of all the sins, please, please, please." That's not happening in Asia. In Asia, they actually have to take responsibility. And you notice that because people are just so... They are nice. On a very general level, they at all times want to be nice because they are afraid of the bad karma. You know, some regions of Asia also have this whole shtick with resurrection or getting reborn in another life, and you want to be born into a good life. Because if you're naughty, you're not getting born into a good life. Reborn. So it's a very interesting way of dealing with reality, of taking individual responsibility, which sometimes in the West is kind of not there anymore. Even though the West is growing increasingly atheist, away from religion, but this egoistic perspective of... We're playing Indiana Jones, by the way. I'm always like this in a museum. I love museums. Very important to human history, and it's also interesting considering our current developments. Sarcophagus, eh? There's nothing inside, that's not good. And that here, is it Minoan culture? No, is it just Greek? Anyway, I have to go eat. We shall meet again. And meet the guy speaking Latin. Until we meet again.